Oh, hey, I didn't see you guys there. But you know what? Just in time. I'm about to film a how to write like Thornhill video. So let's dive right in. Alright guys, so we're in the session and today we're going to be using my Schecter Bass 6 because we're doing Bodies era Thornhill and they do a lot of Bass 6 riffing on that record. This is tuned a little bit lower than what they normally tune theirs to, but a little lower never hurt anybody. Now as far as tempo goes, I did notice that a lot of their songs range from like higher 80s to like lower hundreds and whatnot, so we're going to go with like 95. And then instead of starting with drums, I'm going to riff around a little bit and come up with a groovy Thornhill sounding riff. So here we go. Let's get right into it. Cool, so we're gonna go with something kind of like that. They do a lot of like those little like almost chromatic-y kind of runs. So I'm gonna stick with that riff idea. I'm gonna put that down and then we're gonna find some drums or program some drums to it and start building. All right, so we're gonna use that as our scratch track for right now, and we're gonna start dialing in some drums and really start building this vibe out. So we're just gonna go ahead and program some drums really quick. I will catch you guys in the future because this is gonna take a minute. All right, so we have our drums programmed here, and this is what it sounds like with the scratch. Cool, so I'm gonna go ahead and actually like track the guitar part for realsies this time, and I have an idea for like that second half, so I'm just gonna go ahead and break it up into some chunks really quick. I'm gonna track the guitars and we're gonna get this moving. All right, so we have our guitars tracked. We have our left and right, and here's how they sound with the drums. All right, so what I'm gonna do now for that second half, I'm gonna track the octave lower of that riff. Same thing, just octave lower. I noticed they do that quite a bit, so we're gonna do that and then keep moving. All right, and here is how that second half sounds with the drums. Sick. I think what we're gonna do now is just kind of add some like ambient layers underneath and add some like production, some perk, stuff like that. All right, so let's see. Let's do some ambient guitars really quick. I'm gonna just throw a nice big ol' reverb on here. All right, so I'm just gonna noodle around until I come up with something for some nice little ambient layers. Yeah, I think something like that underneath could be pretty cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that down. All right, cool. So we have our ambient lead down. Let's hear how that sounds. Yeah, so I think that sounds pretty good. It's kind of like helping to create more of like an atmosphere and giving it more feeling, a little bit more movement in the riff, but it's pretty subtle. It's not like a focal point really. All right, so one of the last things I think I'm gonna do in this section right now is just add some like perk just to give it a little more like groove to it. Honestly, I think I'm going to throw these in. I feel like these would be cool. I really like the movement they have in them. Here's a little bit of it with the hats in there. It just kind of gives it like a little bit more like groove and feeling. And before I forget, let's add bass to this and then let's move on to the verse. And because I don't have an actual bass that can handle a tuning this low, we're just going to program, and I'm just going to be using Eurobase 3 and processing it with the Seismic Bass Suite. All right, so we have the bass programmed for that part, and here is how it sounds with the guitars and the production and stuff. I did like the octave up thing with the bass because I know they don't do like the bass like an octave below since their guitars are already tuned so low. So I'm kind of just going with that vibe for that. All right, so we're gonna come up with a verse now, and I'm gonna see if I can find like a good groove to kind of set the tone for that. I know they do a lot of kind of like hi-hat stuff for their verses, so I'm gonna see if I can find something that aligns with that. All right, we're gonna go ahead and use this. And then I think what I'm gonna do in here is kind of just do a variation of the riff that we already have going on. I think I'm just gonna kind of do like a broken up version of it. I know they do a lot of stuff kind of like that throughout their songs. All right, so I'm gonna come up with a broken kind of version of that and track that. Cool, so I think I'm gonna kind of do a vibe like that. So I'm gonna track that and get us on our way to our chorus. All right, so we have our verse section, and I flew like the ambient guitars over, and then I just brought them down a little bit with automation so they would be a little bit more subtle and gel into the mix a little bit better. And here is what the verse sounds like. And that sets us up to go into a chorus beautifully. We're gonna do a big shoegazy style chorus, much like Thornhill does on the Bodies record. So I'm gonna see if I can find a drum groove that will kind of fit that vibe. I already kind of have an idea of what I wanna do on guitar for the chorus. So let me just see if I can find a groove that'll fit that. Okay, so we're gonna roll with this fake halftime one right here. It's a little more bouncy and groovy than I had intended, but I think it's gonna work really well, actually. I'm gonna just go ahead and track the idea on guitar that I kind of have for it and see if it works, and we're gonna build this chorus out. All right, so this is roughly the idea that I have. I'm gonna tighten it up a little bit when I actually lay it down, but here is the idea, just so you guys can kind of see what I'm hearing in my head. So there's definitely some things that are going to need to change in the drums there to kind of fit the like vibe of the guitar more, and we can go back and tweak those. That's one of my favorite things about using grooves. We can kind of get like the basic idea and feel down so we can get tracking right away, and then we can just go ahead and adjust that later. So I'm going to get some good takes of that. I'll fix up the drums, add bass, do all that stuff, and then we'll add some production in there. And then we can probably kind of call it and listen to the whole thing. All right, so I went through and I adjusted the drums. We have the guitars down and I have the bass here. So here's what we have for the chorus idea so far. I'm going to actually throw these hats back over here as well. I do want to add some more like lead guitar, like ambient guitar, maybe some more like production and whatnot in here too. But here's what we have so far. Now let's just add some ambient guitar, maybe some other kind of like lead things, maybe throw in a little bit more production, even just like a couple like impacts, like risers, stuff like that. And maybe do some sort of intro. And then I think we'll kind of have ourselves the start of a Thornhill song. I'm going to try to do some more like ambient stuff, something maybe like a little different on here. So I'm just going to loop this and mess around for a second and see what I can come up with. Kind of like an idea like that. Gives it some like melody and whatnot too. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that down and then we'll add some production. All right, so we have our ambient guitars down and I automated them up just a little bit in the mix because they were pretty buried. So here's what it sounds like. Yeah, I kind of want to see if I can just come up with like some sort of like lead to throw in there as well and add a couple things in here. I want a chorus on here. And then I think I am going to bypass this and I think we're going to actually add a delay in here just to give it some feel. All right, let's see what I can come up with. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do something like that for the lead. It like very much has that like nu metal vibe that they sit in, especially on that Bodies record. So I'm gonna track that and keep on trucking. All right, so we have our lead guitar and here is how it sounds in the mix. Sounds pretty cool, sounds very nu metal. I think I'm just gonna bring the hats up just a little bit in the chorus as well. And then we're just gonna have the hats cut off when the hits start coming in, just so that part's more impactful. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and add like impacts and create a little intro. And then I think we are gonna call it on this. What's this? You know, I actually think that could kind of be cool for maybe like the intro or something. I have an idea already for like what I want to do for like the intro, but that could be cool in there too. These are so crazy. Oh yeah, we'll do this tree splitter one. We'll do that one too. You know, I am gonna find a sub to throw in here really quick too, actually. Yeah, let's just do that one. All right, so I just went through and I kind of like processed my guitars and stuff a bit just so everything would sit in the mix a little bit better. I'm gonna go ahead and create the little intro idea I have, and then I think we're gonna take a listen to the full thing. Nothing crazy for the idea, just kind of like some like generic like feedback noise kind of stuff, like swelling right into the song. All right, one last thing. I just feel like I kind of need a whoosh to go with that. So we're gonna just do my favorite big whoosh. Just because I really like this whoosh. I think it sounds great. All right, guys, so I think I'm gonna call it here. Let's listen to the whole thing and see if I nailed the vibe of Bodies era Thornhill. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you think that I nailed the Thornhill Bodies era vibe. I personally think that I got pretty close. And also, let me know what other bands you'd like to see on the How to Write Like series. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to stay up to date for future videos. I'll catch you in the next one. See you guys.